What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Zoe, and today I'm talking about the books that I read in the month of February. I read a total of 12 books. I DNF'd one book. A few of them were audiobooks. I read an entire webcomic. I read some graphic novels. I read a lot of books in the month of February. I can't believe that it's the shortest month of the year and I killed it by reading 12 books. It's just awesome. I did participate in the Contemporary-a-thon, so that really helped. I'm gonna fly over those books because I talk a lot about them in my Contemporary-a-thon vlog, so if you guys want to hear more about my thoughts on those books, I just recommend going and checking that out. I will link it below. I also read my new favorite book of all time, and I also read my least favorite book of all time in the month of February. Weird how that happens, but it happened, and I'm really excited to talk about both of these books. I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. Two of the books that I read this month were Snot Girl, Volume 1 and Volume 2. This is a graphic novel by Brian Lee O'Malley and Leslie Hung, and I am loving it. First of all, these graphic novels are just like beautiful. I love the colors, they're vibrant. The artwork is just like absolutely stunning, and I'm obsessed. Like visually, I'm just absolutely obsessed. The story is actually really surprising as well. It totally took me by surprise. There is actually like some mystery aspects to this story and some interesting relationship aspects, and I'm just really liking it. It basically follows our main character. Her name is Lottie Pearson, and she is a social influencer. She's a fashion blogger, and she just thinks that she's all that, but she has really intense allergies, so she's always like dripping with allergies, and it's super gross, but it's really funny. I just think that the satire in this is brilliant. It totally kind of pokes fun at social media, social influencers, and you know, there's definitely times I feel personally attacked, but I just think it's for fun, it's funny, and again, like I said, I'm just loving these. I read both Volume 1 and Volume 2, and I am really excited for Volume 3. I gave both of these, I believe, 4 out of 5 stars. I feel like I have to take a deep breath before I talk about this book because I love it so much. So this is my new favorite book of all time, and I just need to like collect my thoughts so I can rave about it eloquently enough to maybe convince some of you to pick it up, but it is The Dreamers. This is by Karen Thompson Walker. This was newly released, I believe, at the end of January, and guys, this book is so good. I love this book. It is just... it's so good. Okay, let me quickly talk about what it's about. So, general easy synopsis is that it follows a lot of different people in this town that becomes plagued by this sort of virus where it makes people fall asleep and not wake up. Essentially, they're comatose and they can't wake up. Some of them experience dreams, and like, it sounds totally lame. The way I'm describing it makes it not sound that interesting at all. But hear me out. It's beautiful. It's written beautifully. There are just some lines in here that I read and I just had to like stop reading and soak in the way that it was written and the metaphors that were used. So if you're not someone who enjoys multiple character perspectives, you will not like this. I mean, there were so many people that you were following throughout the town. I can't even count them all. It's a lot of different characters going through the same thing, but man, it definitely gives you like Station 11 vibes. I know that that's been generally compared to this. Emily St. John Mandel, who wrote Station 11, actually blurbed this and said it's absolutely stunning, which it is. If you like Station 11, you'll probably like this. Oh my goodness, it was just stunning. It's a beautiful, poignant book about life, and it felt really real, and the actions from the characters felt real, and you know, things never necessarily went the way that I wanted them to, and I liked that. So, oh my goodness, I feel like I could go on a huge tangent about how amazing this book is, but it's just so good. It's everything I love about books. It's everything I love about reading, and I am absolutely obsessed. I want to reread it already right now. I gave this 11 out of 5 stars. I love it so much. It's my new favorite book of all time, and I just can't shut up about it. It's so good. Okay, I know we need to move on, so I'm moving on. The next few books I read for the Contemporary-a-thon, again, I will link the video of my vlog below. I had a really fun time during the Contemporary-a-thon. I read a handful of books. The first book I read was a manga, Dream and Sun. I've been talking about this for a while. Very like new girl-ish Wish vibes. Like a girl moves in with a bunch of guys and then hilarity ensues. It's fun. I like it. It's a little weird. I need to continue on in the series though. This was volume 5. I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished during the Contemporary-a-thon was Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. This follows 2 coworkers as they email back and forth, and then the security guy who reads their emails falls in love with one of the coworkers. It's a little weird. It's romantic-ish if you're into that. I didn't love it. I ended up giving this one like 3 stars. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It was just okay. The next book I finished and I absolutely loved. It was my favorite book of all of Contemporary-a-thon. That was Baby Teeth by Zoe Stage. I freaking love this. I also raved about this in my vlog with Contemporary-a-thon, but oh my goodness, it's a mystery thriller where the chapters alternate between a mother and a daughter. The daughter is about 7 years old and she basically is really kind of certifiably crazy and is basically trying to kill the mom, and it's just nuts, and I loved every second of it. The ending wasn't my favorite. I wanted it to go a different way than it did, but it didn't make me hate the book, so I did end up giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished was The Poet X. This is by Elizabeth Acevedo. This was also really, really solid. This is a book told in verse from the perspective of a teen growing up in Harlem. As she is trying to find her voice, she writes poetry and joins her school's slam poetry club, but her mother especially is extremely religious and puts a lot of rules and restraints on Xiomara, who is our main character, and how that just affects her and the relationships, how they grow and how they form, and it was really, really powerful book. I absolutely loved this one. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars as well. And the last book that I read during the Contemporary-a-thon was Under Rose-Tainted Skies. This is by Louise Gournal, and it follows a main character who struggles with a lot of different mental health issues, agoraphobia, OCD, anxiety, depression, self-harm. She's going through a lot, and she's basically kind of, because of those things, trapped inside of her house, and she one day meets a neighbor boy who kind of changes things up for her. I didn't love this. I'm not a huge fan of that kind of trope. It reminded me a lot of Everything Everything by Nicola Yoon, which I actually really did enjoy, but I just didn't love the story. What I particularly loved about this book was the mental health rep. I thought that was really powerful, and I really appreciated and loved reading about a character who struggles with some similar things that I do. Hers are definitely more extreme, but it was so refreshing to read something and be like, oh, I'm not alone. I have similar thoughts. Like, that's me too, you know? And it was just so nice to read a young adult novel that had that represented so well. So the rep in this is awesome. The story I thought was super lackluster. I didn't care for the romance. I didn't really care for just how things developed in any way. I was not invested in that whatsoever, but the mental health rep was on point, and for those reasons I did give it 2 out of 5 stars. I also did attempt to read earlier in the month a book called We Cast a Shadow, and while I totally appreciate what this book tries to accomplish, I could not finish it. I did end up DNFing this book. It's a dystopian satire type book that follows a family where a man is trying to help his son get his skin color to be more white, because in this futuristic dystopian society, Black people are even more undermined than they are today. And I really appreciate what it was trying to accomplish, but the way it was being written, I could not understand the story at all. There was a lot of sarcasm, but it was hard to tell what was almost sarcasm and satire versus just being dystopian world. Like, I couldn't, it was such a unique, almost like fantasy feeling world that I was missing the entire story, and I just could not keep continuing on with this book, so I did go ahead and DNF that book. The next book that I read in the month of February was The Couple Next Door by Shari Lapena. This is a mystery thriller that has been on my shelf for a long time. It is not my first Shari Lapena book. The first one I read was A Stranger in the House, I think that's what it's called, and didn't like it, didn't hate it. It was just it was an okay mystery thriller, and I felt the exact same way about this one. I was bummed because I feel like if I had read this one before A Stranger in the House, I would probably have thought it was better. I don't know if like reading that one just kind of tainted my view of Shari Lapena's books. I don't know. I was hoping for like a little bit more intensity, and while this was intense, it just didn't like rock my world as far as like mystery thrillers go. This follows a couple whose baby is kidnapped, and a twist of events happened. There's literally like really nothing else I can tell you because spoilers. I know that a lot of people love this mystery thriller. It's not long at all. It was such a fast read. It's like exactly 300 pages, and if you're looking for like a mystery thriller that's not super scary and not super intense but just has like fun twists, you'll really like this one. I did go ahead and give this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read in the month of February was Brown Girl Dreaming. This is by Jacqueline Woodson. This is another book told in verse. It just was a theme, obviously, in the month of February. This has been on my TBR shelf for a long time, and I particularly wanted to pick it up because February is Black History Month, and I'm so glad I read this book. It was so enjoyable. This is essentially a memoir told in verse by Jacqueline Woodson of her growing up as an African-American girl in the 1960s and 70s, and man, I just loved it. It was extremely humbling. It was really intriguing and beautifully written. I mean, just absolutely stunningly written. It made her story really enjoyable. I forgot a lot of times that I was reading like an actual memoir, an actual, you know, person's story, and when I remembered that as I was reading, it just made it all the more enjoyable. Overall, I really liked this one. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read, I have already gotten rid of because I hated it that much. I did an unhaul last week. It was not included in my unhaul video because I was in the middle of reading it, and then I ended up also getting rid of it during my unhaul because I could not stand this book. I'm amazed that I even finished it. So this book that I'm talking about is Wink Poppy Midnight. This is by April Genevieve Tolk. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but oh my goodness. It takes a lot for me to hate a book, you guys. Like, it takes a lot. And I have not hated a book like this since like I read Caraval. I have not hated a book in a long time, and I just could not believe what I was reading half of the time. This book is weird. How do I even describe it? It follows 3 characters. Their names are Wink, Poppy, and Midnight. That already bugged me. Just FYI, the names were bizarre. Everyone's name was bizarre. Midnight had a brother named Alabama. Although I have to say there was a character named Zoe, so I shouldn't say it's that bizarre, but they were bizarre. So the 3 characters are all extremely stereotypical type characters. Poppy's, you know, the mean girl, mean beautiful girl. Midnight's like the sucker for the mean popular girl, the nice guy, boy next door, and then Wink is like the weird, unusual girl who's still beautiful, and you know, how their relationships intertwine. And oh my god, just hated it so much. The writing was weird. Everyone says that the writing was so beautiful. It was so repetitive. The author continually used repetition of 3s throughout the entire book, which drove me crazy. She would repeat the word 3 times over and over, or like the phrase 3 times over. It was done a lot, and it was extremely annoying. I'm not an author, so I try not to be too critical of the way something is written, but in my opinion, that's lazy writing. If you want to write something eloquently and beautifully, doing repetition of 3 is totally acceptable, but should be used, I think, not through an entire book. It was annoying. And then some of the lines were cringeworthy as all get out. The things that they were doing, like, these kids are high school kids, and the things that they were doing and the things that they were saying, I could not believe high school kids, let alone anyone, would ever do these things. It did not make sense. They were way higher in like a maturity level than high school kids I have ever known in my entire life. There was one line, I'm trying to think of it, where Midnight's dad was talking to him. He was trying to ask him, like, what's the matter, Midnight? Like, why do you seem so down? I know your heart like I know your own footsteps in the middle of the night, or something weird like that. It was just too bizarre for me. There was a twist at the end that was like semi-interesting, but it just did not make up for the entirety of the book. Finished it because I like could not believe what I was almost reading. I was like, surely this is not happening. I mean, there were times I was literally like laughing because it just was so weird. I need to breathe. So all that said, I gave it 1 star out of 5 stars. 0 stars, I don't even know. When do you get a book that you just absolutely hate? No stars. It was so bad. I'm sorry if you like this book. I just couldn't believe it. It was not good. Okay, I need to move on. So the last thing that I read that I'm counting as reading because I liked it, I enjoyed it, I was reading it, was actually a webcomic. So I just got introduced to the app Webtoon, and there's tons of webcomics on there to read for free, and they're done by just amazing amazing people, and I loved the webcomic that I read. I'm counting it as read because I caught up to where it's now you have to wait weekly for another issue to come out. If you're on this app, you've probably seen it before, because the only reason I decided to read it was because it was like rated the #1 webcomic, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll just, you know, see what this is all about, and I ended up really liking it, and that was Lore Olympus by Rachel Smith. It's about the characters from like not mythological, what are those called? Like Hades and Persephone's and Artemis and all of those, not mythological, like Grecian, and literally I cannot think of the word. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, Olympus. I don't know, Hades and Zeus and like Hera. You know what I'm saying? What are they called? That's driving me nuts. All those kinds of characters, and it's super cute. It's basically following like all of them, but Persephone and Hades specifically. And I don't know, I don't want to give any spoilers, but just like their relationship, and it's just so cute. Like it takes a lot for me to ship two people and have like an OTP and just want two characters to like be together, but I love them. I think they are so freaking cute. I love Hades, I love Persephone, and like I'm just enjoying so much following their story, and then all the other characters, and I'm loving it. I highly recommend it. If you're looking for like something really fun to read that might get you out of a reading slump, I totally recommend downloading the app Webtoon. It doesn't cost any money, and there's so many other webtoons. I'm also starting to read True Beauty, and I really like that one as well, so super duper recommend. I love webcomics. It's like my new favorite thing. Oh my goodness. So those are all of the books that I read in February, which was a lot. I still can't believe I read 12 books in 1 month. That's like crazy to me. I'm super proud of myself. One thing I love doing after I do these wrap-ups, once I do the wrap-ups, I'm allowed to take all the books and put them on my red shelf, and I can't wait to do that now. It's like my favorite part of filming wrap-ups, even though you guys don't get to see it. So yeah, adding a lot more books in my collection, specifically The Dreamers. Go read that book. It is so freaking good. But yeah, I had a really good month of reading. I hope you guys did as well. Let me know what you read in the month of February. I would love to know your favorite book. Tell me to go read it. I can add it to my TBR. I'm always looking for book recommendations. So if you guys have a book that you read last month that you love, let me know, and I would love to check it out. All right, you guys. Well, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you are, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!